The demand for warehousing, for data centers on the rise, with all kinds of players looking to invest. And what is India emerging as when it comes to a destination for such investments? Joining us on the show today, we've got Mr. Vineet Agarwal, the MD at TCI, and we're also joined by Mr. Rampraveen Swaminathan of Mahindra Logistics. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Vineet, let me just start off with you then. Now, as per Anarock, data center outsourcing market in India is worth upwards of $2 million US, projected to grow at 25% CAGR to reach $5 billion by FY 23-24. Those are the kind of projections. Would you concur that the industry can actually attract those kind of investments over the next couple of years, the COVID impact being temporary?
So, I mean, data centers, you meant data centers and warehousing as well. So clearly, yes, the kind of investment that is 2 billion is one, but we've heard numbers of 4 billion, and this is all equity. So there's equity plus debt. So there's a huge amount of capacity that is being planned, and a lot of commitment has already been made. So there is certainly going to be demand. I think there are two specific trends that we are seeing post-COVID. One is clearly that there are some companies that are going from just in time to just in case, which means that I need to have more safety stock so that I don't miss sales. And as you know, that missing sales for many companies is worse than possibly the cost of inventory, which has also started to come down with interest rates coming down. And the second trend is towards other companies saying that I want to cut costs. So can I bring some warehouses together? Can actually build larger facilities, and those will drive demand in their own way. The lower quality warehouses will possibly come down, and the higher quality facilities will possibly go up. And of course, all of this trend is being pushed by things like GST, which means that you want to consolidate warehouses, or you want to, in some cases, you want to make sure that you're moving to a more organized setup. And the second trend, of course, big trend is e-commerce. Those are specific things that are going to drive warehousing. So I'm pretty sure that this kind of a number would mean this kind of expansion in capacity, and that would over time get absorbed. Perhaps slowly now, but over time.
Okay. Right. Mr. Swaminathan, let me bring you in on this as well, get your view, as well as whether you feel there are any particular cities, states, regions that also have high potential to attract investors for this purpose.
I think, first of all, I echo Vineet's view that the long-term absorption should probably be able to take care of the 25% growth projection, definitely on A-grade warehousing. So I think there will be an increased tendency towards moving towards A-grade warehousing as you see growth drivers in e-commerce, continuing supply chain consolidation, more focus on safety and automation. So all these things will probably drive more towards A-grade warehouses. And so that's one category which we think might even grow faster than 25%. There will be some short-term realignment given the COVID situation now, but that should play itself out. And a lot of that growth actually now has, in the last couple of years, happened in 7 or 8 bigger cities. I think as companies post-COVID look at de-risking, their inventory and supply chains, as well as kind of expanding their spread, because more e-commerce will continue to grow as a channel. I think you'll probably see that warehousing reach actually spreading to other locations as well. So the 7 or 8 big cities, the metros and the urban locations will continue to drive demand, but I think we will start seeing A-grade warehousing growth in smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. And we're seeing that even now, in our discussions with some of our customers.
Vineet, would India then emerge as an alternate destination as opposed to China for top MNC players to diversify manufacturing, supply chain, and hence perhaps see higher demand for warehousing? What is your sense?
That's a very big question. I think to attract the global value chains to India, requires a lot more than just a right kind of warehousing infrastructure. Clearly, certain government incentives and of course the right ease of doing business in India is clearly very critical. And we've seen that it's not yet so easy. We know that, for example, opening a company, closing a company, getting a bank account done, so many things that take much longer. But certainly there is a demand. I think the Indian market per se has a huge amount of requirement or capacity that can get absorbed over time. Also because demand structures are changing. I think we are seeing things moving to an omni-channel kind of a model where you're looking at not just retail, which is at the store level, but more on the e-commerce kind of a thing. So lots of various model changes are happening. India will perhaps skip a few generations of that kind of retail that used to happen in, let's say, high street in different parts of the world. So which means that demand for warehousing should accelerate certainly. And then the other types of warehousing exist, which can help companies coming from, let's say, a China plus one strategy for many MNCs would to actually build FTWZs, free trade warehousing zones, where they can import the material, do some value addition, and then export it from there as well as service the domestic market. So various different models will start emerging, and some of them are already existing that we work with our clients that will certainly move companies to India.
Sure. Rampraveen, if I could, get you in here, what do you think are the challenges for India to actually scale up and, emerge as a top destination when it comes to supply chain and then thereby warehousing?
I think that there are a set of changes which obviously are required. I think in terms of a destination, obviously the demand has to emerge. I think there is a strong intention now clearly around Make in India, and driving more manufacturing growth in India, both for domestic and global markets. But that's a much larger policy construct. So hopefully intention will also be followed by action shortly. Obviously that alone will not, is just one parameter. There are some supply side changes which also need to be made. India is a very informal market, right? And there is the need for larger and continuing formalization from a sector perspective, whether you look at warehousing or logistics as a whole. Now, there have been some really good moves made by the government. I think with the rollout of the national logistics policy, hopefully that will get strengthened further. So there are, I think, policy initiatives in pipeline which should accelerate this. And a lot of that has already is kind of just needs to get rolled out in some ways. But over a period of time, I think having the right support to create infrastructure, recognizing logistics and warehousing as an formal industry and supporting that with the right mechanisms for growth, I think are really critical. And obviously having a labor policy which also supports that is essential. A lot of that, as I said, is in process. So hopefully as that gets rolled out, I think we will see increased supply side enablement to the logistics and warehousing sector. And if that married with a stronger demand environment with acceleration Make in India from an industrialization perspective and acceleration e-commerce and the larger digital move should obviously create and sustain that growth from a warehousing perspective.
New business line for your group, create large warehouses. You're already there in transportation. You have express service as well as a regular service. Now add the advantage of warehouse, which up until now was a necessity, but now will become a new line of business.
Nikunj, that was for me?
That's right, Vineet.
One of the things was to look at how we can create large warehouses and capacity for ourselves. But, I think if you look at the business in two buckets, one is the warehouse, which is outside the box, and the warehouse element, which is inside the box. So outside the box is really a real estate play. Inside the box is the kind of stuff that we do in our company, where we do the complete e-commerce fulfillment. or running CNF agencies for many companies in the FMCG, consumer durable, and other areas. So the outside the box, the real estate kind of business is something that we felt that did have a potential a few years ago, and now there's so much capacity coming up that we are feeling that maybe we should not invest more into this space. So we might be just wanting to lease out these spaces across the country, and we do have some large facilities that we own, and most of them were showcased because when we built some of these about 10, 15 years ago, at that time there was no A-grade warehousing in the country. And we created some of these to really showcase to our clients that this is what is possible because of our experience of working with MNCs or visiting companies overseas. And so that trend has now caught on. So perhaps an investment into this area of real estate is something that we are not foreseeing to augment really.
Fair point. Mr. Swaminathan, I know friends of mine and their friends and few investment experts have started investing in the warehousing business, like Vineet said, more like a real estate play with strong yields. Do you see a bright future for an entrepreneur to invest in land, build a warehouse, and expect a yield of more than 7, 8, 9%?
I think there's no one answer to that. I think, as Vineet said, this space has a lot of very competent players from a real estate perspective. A lot of investment has come in there. There is growth. I think growth over the next 4 or 5 years, I think the growth will be there to kind of absorb this. The demand will be there to absorb this supply. But it's a space where there's a lot of strong players who have emerged. And like them, we as well see ourselves as a service provider rather than a real estate company. So our focus is on providing services and solutions using partners who do the real estate, rather than actually owning the real estate ourselves. Is there space for players? I guess there is. I think the opportunities exist, but there's no one, I think, simple answer to that. I think it depends on company and an organization and the competencies they bring to play.
Just to take that forward, Nikunj, I do not think it's a great idea for single entrepreneurs who have a piece of land to look at building warehouses per se, because the kind of quality that you need nowadays has dramatically changed. The expectations of clients have also changed, which means that if you need those yields, then you need to have that quality, and you need to think from a very long-term perspective. So many people in the past used to do this and build facilities where they had land available. And also, this was frankly a business where people were converting their black money to white money. So all those things have started to change already. And I would probably, if someone has a piece of land and they think that it's a good location for warehousing, perhaps work with someone to build that and lease it out rather than do it themselves.
So, and to add to that, I think warehousing is not just a land play. I think increasingly it's about building projects on time, building them to great specifications, being able to engage with customers from a demand planning perspective. So it's much more than just being a land grab in that sense. So will require a new set of competencies. A lot of players have them. Some will have to build them.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.